because we have such an amazing group of leaders on it. So without further ado, we're going to just jump right in, and let me introduce our panel to you. So in our panel today, we have Cindy Schulze. She is the Regional Vice President at Spectrum Reach. We have Robin Woods, Vice President of Talent Management at CSG. And we have Nathan Leal, Director of Customer Care at Cox. So welcome, Cindy, Robin, Nathan. We would like to hear from you on your journey. If you could, please share with us some of the highlights in your career journey, and also personal, of course, so we can get to know you a little bit better. So Cindy, let's start with you.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having us. It's kind of exciting to be here on a rainy day in St. Louis, Missouri. So a little bit about me. I'm going to date myself, but I have over 25 years of media experience. This is my second time with Charter Communications. We are part of the media arm of Charter Communications. We call ourselves Spectrum Reach. And I spent some time in broadcast TV also, which kind of just really that experience and digital or advanced experience brought me to my current role that I've been in for 4 years as the Regional Vice President over what we call the Mid-Central region. All of my TV, media, and advanced background gave me the opportunity to really, frankly, get my dream job. And that's what I'm in now. I get to work with amazing people. Actually, they make it easy because I have a fantastic team. And I sit in St. Louis, Missouri, which is our original corporate headquarters for Charter Communications. And I have 4 children and a black lab. That's me.
Awesome. Thank you, Cindy. Welcome. Let's see, Robin. Oh.
My team is on this call, and I know they're all going, of course she did that. I too am very honored to be here today. It's a very dreary, chilly day in Kansas City, Missouri, Cindy, which is where I'm located. I work remotely. My company's headquartered in Denver, but it's a global organization like probably most everybody. Let's see, I have 2 grown children, and I'll date myself a little further. I have over 30 years in telecom and an additional 10-ish years outside of telecom. So my career journey has been an interesting one as well. I started out in my life wanting to go to law school, ended up graduating with an accounting degree, and then sort of ran the gamut at Sprint, where I spent the majority of my career. I did accounting, finance, customer care, inside sales. I pretended like I was a lawyer for a while on the regulatory team, strategic planning, and then I sort of settled into program management, project management for the better part of my career. And now, amazingly enough, I am leading an HR organization, which is, just the spin of all of it. But it's been, I tell people that I'm the poster child for career development. Always looking for something new to add to my skill set, something, a new challenge. And now that I've done this for a while, it's made for a lovely quilted experience. So it's been pretty fun.
Thank you, Robin. Welcome. And then third on our panel, we have Nathan.
Hello. Yes, I'm Nathan Leal. Well, first off, I'll say it is rainy and kind of cool out here in Wichita as well. Located in Wichita, I do work remotely as well. Work with the customer care team. It's funny because you spoke to your kind of odd career path, and I have my term is wonky, I think. Just out of college, I got a marketing degree, and that was it. I'm going into marketing. I love advertising. This is where I'm going. Got a little bit of the sales taste. I'm like, let me pull back just a little bit and let me see where I can go, right? So I saw an advertisement for Cox, and I'm like, oh, that's it. They have great marketing teams. I always see their ads. And little did I know, I went to a hiring event for a tech event. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm going through these interviews, and this is 20 years ago. I'm I've learned a lot since then of preparation, maybe even. And so I'm going through the interview and they asked me if I have any questions. I'm like, yeah, do you train? Because I can barely turn on my DVD player, let alone be a tech support. And crazy enough, I got hired, which was the best thing that happened for me, because I met so many phenomenal people. The people that whether it's leaders, whether it's my employees, my peers, I wouldn't be where I'm at without them. And I created a family. So as I progressed through my career, I moved from the tech side to more of the account services side, all within care. But you start developing your path as you learn what fits. And it was home. And, I knew I could have an influence there. I knew they could influence me. And so that's kind of where I ended up. Will I ever end up in marketing? Maybe, whatever the path leads to. But right now I'm very happy. And from a personal aspect, I have my 13-year-old son. If you have children, you know where the 13 age is, what that brings. And so I'm having fun with that, but he's my world outside of me being here. Thank you again for the invite.
Thank you for being here. Welcome, Nathan. Like I said, everyone, I am very excited because we have so much knowledge, so much experience on our panel today. So I'm looking forward to all of the gaining that we're going to get on here. So I guess we'll just jump right in. We have some questions planned, but then again, we want to leave enough room at the end for questions from the audience. So please make sure you start typing your questions in chat as you're thinking of them throughout our chat here. So the first topic we would like to touch on today relates to skills and leadership. So this time I'll start with Robin. Robin, what skill or skills do you use most often in your leadership role, and how have you grown those skills over your career?
It's interesting because years ago I would have tagged a technical skill or two here, but as my careers progress, they've been the things I lean on the most are what I would probably call leadership skills, right? So things like being empathetic, being able to set a vision, being able to take my team, we've just been working on a set of leadership keystones for CSG, and being able to take big things and make them actionable things so people can get focused, and alignment and that type of thing. I think the thing that I do, or that I hope to do the best for my team, aside from helping them develop their own talent and careers, is getting out of their way and getting other things out of their way. I think that's a key role for any leader, is the ability to, help their team be successful. I am not going to be successful by myself. So those would be the areas where I think I lean the most these days is leadership.
Thank you, Robin. Definitely brought up some good points on setting a vision, and less of the technical and more of the people and the leader skills there. So, okay. Staying on the same topic, Cindy, can you tell us what skill or skills you use most often in your leadership role now, and how have you grown those skills throughout your career?
Yeah, so I love following Robin because I'm sitting here nodding, right? Like I agree with everything. It's so funny, like just taking any speed bumps away, right? Like, and frankly, me staying out of the way, right? So that they can do what they need to do. And when you were talking about that, I kept thinking about the word empowerment. One of the things that I think is so great about our organization and being a leader is that we get to empower people. And I can say this for myself too, you don't even realize what you can do until you have a leader that empowers you. So, and that collaboration, we all work in companies that are very action-oriented companies. So you have to work on that team dynamic and that collaboration and that.
Oh, Cindy, there we go. I missed the last part of what you said, Cindy. Oh, I can't hear you. No. Okay. I think I'm gonna move just for the sake of time. Let's try, if you want to try again, Cindy. Okay, so she's having a little bit of a technical issue there. I hate to leave it in the middle there, but we'll come back to her. Hopefully, if she is able to get back on with the audio. Nathan, let's go to you. So the same question for you. What skill or skills do you use most often in your role now as a leader, and how have you grown those skills throughout your career?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Well, I'll kind of follow right with what Cindy was saying, and I actually had the pleasure of having a conversation with Robin not too long ago, and I think we resonate with one another. We're definitely on the same page. I'll break it down a bit more, because when I think about empowerment, I think about influence, and when I think about influence, I break it down even further. And communication is a broad term, right? But thinking about communication and active listening, which to me goes hand in hand. You're understanding and identifying what the needs of whoever you're working with, your audience. You're then shifting and shaping your communication style to mirror those needs, right? That then leads to that trust, that buy-in. They want to understand what you need, you want to understand what they need. And then it then leads to that influence. And communication isn't just about verbal, it's body language, being perceptive, understanding how you're getting through to whoever you're working with. That way you can adjust and adapt, right? And that's where that influence comes in. So influence by being influenced, which means you're influencing at times, but you should be being influenced by your audience. And all of these things, brings you to that level of education, confidence, to where you can execute, you can challenge the status quo. So all those terms we use often, I think it goes down and brings it back to that people aspect. And I loved when I heard empowerment, because I think we're all speaking the same language. We might just be using different terms, but it does go back to how you're, those relationships and how you're bringing you and your team and everyone to success by, to what Robin said, getting out of the way and just being that support factor.
Thank you. So very strong points there. Setting a vision, empowering, even just getting out of the way for your team, meeting them where they are. Cindy, welcome back. Can you say something to see if I can hear you again?
So I don't think that I don't think Microsoft Teams likes me, because it keeps muting me and then it just hung me up.
Were you wanting to add anything else? I'm sorry, I know it was like right in the middle of your response there, for the skill sets that you have and how have you grown them in your career?
No, I think we talked about it. I think the biggest one, and you all may have said it while I was gone, is I will say that the one thing I learned is to listen. Mm-hmm. To not try to solve everything, just listen.
Awesome. Listening, another very, very important skill. Thank you. Okay, so we are going to stay in this career growth kind of mentality here, the same topic, but we're going to move a little bit move over to the growth side. So Nathan, I know that you've recently started your current role as director. So we want to ask you, what do you look for in a leadership role? And how do you assess what is right for you? So just for anybody out in our audience that might be thinking about a role in leadership, and how can you be sure that's what's going to fit best for you?
No, good question. And, I'm still learning. I was excited to join this panel because I knew who my peer panelists were going to be. And I love that it's being recorded, because I don't have time to write all these notes, even though I was ready to do so. But, I mentioned earlier, my career path started it was a wonky path, right? And that's because we discover ourselves as we go. And I think if I were to narrow it down, and those two kind of go hand in hand, it's really about fit, or another way of saying it, what the value that, I think I spoke to value earlier, but the value that I can bring. So what can I do for this company, this department, this team, the employees, what kind of an impact can I have? The influence, I mentioned influence earlier. What can they, it of course goes back to you, how can I continue to grow? Will this put me in an uncomfortable spot that's going to challenge what I do? If you go from one position to another and you feel like you've already accomplished that task, where's the benefit? Yes, money will probably come in somewhere down the line, but that should be down the line, right? That should be your last consideration just to make sure it works. It's what do you do to continue to push yourself. I'm a person that can, if you know me, I want to, it's like a now type mentality, and sometimes that's a opportunity, but it also gets me to an extent to where I continue to strive for that next, that next skill set, that next accomplishment. And that accomplishment doesn't have to be a me accomplishment. That's seeing my leaders grow, my team grow, my employees grow, our department achieve that next level of success, and just continuing to challenge. And so, I know that's probably a very sporadic or very broad way of saying it, but how can I influence? How can I challenge those involved in that next role? Can I make that impact? Can I do what's right for the company, myself, the employees? And I think the career path will pave itself. So I rarely look at the position itself. I look at what I can bring and what value I can have at all aspects.
That's amazing. I love what you said about not looking at the position itself, but the value, the growth, the challenge, the opportunity to help others grow as well. Okay. Now, staying on the same topic of growth, but looking at it from a little bit of a different angle. Robin, I'm going to ask this question to you. So from your experience in talent management, can you share with us what is the most dangerous behavior or trait that you have seen derail leaders' careers?
So I can think of three things that come to mind, right? They're kind of related a little bit, but the first one is probably a lack of self-awareness. A leader who doesn't understand how they're seen by others, who doesn't understand how they're perceived in the work world, how they do their work. Kind of related to that is thinking that the end justifies the means. And what I mean by that is we just recently have made some changes in our performance management tools and system, and we are moving towards equal weighting of not just what you get done, but how you get it done. And I think that goes back to that self-awareness mode. If someone is a superstar and they personally overachieve, but they demotivate everybody around them, or they create a toxic, uncomfortable working situation, to me, they're not performing at all. So, that self-awareness, recognizing that how you get it done is just as important as what you get done. And then the other thing is not respecting the value of everybody's contribution, everybody's diverse experience, their diverse personal selves, the things that they bring to the work that are not just their job, that they have families, they have responsibilities, all the things that come along with that, and not creating a space where people can be who they are, who they can be their authentic selves, because they feel like, I'm afraid to be who I am because my leader might not appreciate that or may have a negative opinion about it, whatever. But I think all of that really to me is around self-awareness, a leader who doesn't even understand themselves well enough to lead. And whoever just typed the feedback, absolutely. I think any good leader is not afraid to ask for feedback.
Thank you. You brought a really good point with the self-awareness, and then, as a leader, how important it is to be able to create a culture of, yourself, and then, when you understand your team as well. Okay. We are going to switch gears a little bit for Cindy's question here. So it's on leadership development as well, but it relates specifically to the WICT Network's Betsy Magnus Leadership Institute, Cindy, because I know you're currently in the Institute. So this Institute is a premier program for leadership development of senior level women. Can you share with us, Cindy, what has been the most impactful thing that you have learned so far during your time in this Institute?
Great question. Since this is a program that's about a year long, and I was just with the rest of the Betsy's last week, and by far the connection with like minds and people in the same situations. I can't tell you how many times I've heard from my peers in this program, I'm not an island. Like I can totally relate to what you're saying, and just being able to, we actually requested more time, kind of more white space and more time to really network and talk and problem solve with each other, because we found that connection was just so powerful. And I will say the other big thing that I've learned from it is that need for white space, that need for giving yourself some space and even planning it so that you can be strategic. Because I don't want to speak for my peers here and the rest of you, but we all are working really fast and really hard, right? And it's funny when we talk about, I was in so many meetings, I'm not sure when I'm going to find the time to actually do what we talked about in the meeting. So we owe it to ourselves to find that white space to be more strategic. And I wanted to touch on something Robin said on the feedback. I couldn't agree with you more. I will say that part of my journey, I look at a 360 in a completely different way today than I did 10 years ago. I used to 10 years ago go, oh, really? And now I'm like, bring it on. I would love for everyone to get the opportunity to do a 360, because it helps you with that self-awareness, that alignment, and seeing how everyone sees you. And frankly, it gives you an opportunity to grow. So that was a great answer.
Thank you. Thank you, Cindy. Definitely the self-awareness piece. And then for leaders, I'm sure having that space to think, to plan, to carry out the vision, and just being okay with that, because I think we are caught up in a go, 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 hurry, execute, this type of culture right now. So you have to plan to see and be able to do what's best for your teams. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Charmaine. Let's go over to the chat for some Q&A from our audience. That's what I have here, but I'm sure we have a lot of questions, and I want to have the opportunity for everyone to get what they want to get out of the panel. Not very often do we have the leaders like you here to be able to share your knowledge and your experience with us.
All right, so I haven't seen any in the chat, but it looks like Nancy has her hand up. Nancy, do you want to come and ask a question?
Yeah, I was going to type it, and I'm trying to eat lunch, so I thought it'd be easier just to ask it. So I am a bit of a newer people leader, I should say. So I've only been in this position for about 1.5 years now. And my question for you guys is, what is the one failure that you've experienced that you learned the most from, if you can share it?
Wow, I can answer that one. I call it the shell answer man, but that also dates me because half of you have no idea what I'm talking about. But what that means is, my biggest failure is that I thought I had to have all the answers. I thought I had to be able to solve every single problem. And until I realized that that wasn't actually my job and I wasn't doing anyone any favors, that was kind of my failure when I first became a people leader.
That's a big one.
Yeah, I was just going to tag on to that because I think you read my mind. Coming on, especially as I started leading leaders, someone specifically directly told me, you don't have to have all our hands in every pot. And I'm like, maybe I don't. It not only exhausts you, but as we all know it, you have less credible work, you have less valuable results. And so the trust in your team, the trust in your employees, they're your team for a reason, and learning to do that and learning to let go, invaluable. So absolutely agree.
Yeah, I could not add one thing to that. I really couldn't.
As part of a team, for me, it's always gone when my leader or somebody in such a higher level position ask me for my input or for what I do on the day-to-day, I take it like such a huge compliment. So it is building that trust with your team, and they're asking you and they're saying, well, you do this every day. What do you think? What's your input on it? So thank you. Thank you.
That was a great question, Nancy. Okay, so we do have a couple of questions in the chat now. So Carrie asked if you have any advice or tips on how to best manage up or peer-to-peer.
So I'll step in that hole. You know, my first reaction when I saw that in the chat was, you know, you should manage the same way. But the reality is, you know, it's difficult. I think it goes back again to understanding the people around you, what their needs are, what their challenges are, what their passions are. I'm not saying that you should change yourself for other people, but you know, anytime you're communicating with another person, there's two people in that conversation. And so when you're trying to influence somebody up, down, sideways, whatever, you need to be cognizant of where they sit, where they're coming from, what their needs are. And I think you can be much more effective if you've got that perspective. You might not get it right. It may not work out the first time. You know, people need to feel like you're interested in them before they're going to be interested in you. So that would be my recommendation, is to just, you know, try to understand who you're talking to, as much as you understand yourself.
I think that's great advice, understanding who you're talking to and talking to them as much as yourself. Okay, so another question, and I think this one is for you, Robin. Reggie is asking, what is your advice on how to become more self-aware?
Well, you know, Cindy mentioned the 360 a little bit ago. A 360 is a great way to get feedback from other people, but so is just asking them. You know, I'd like to think that I try to do that. I could do it more. Everybody could do it more. But I think ask people, you know, don't be afraid of feedback. Feedback is, you know, a coworker of mine has coined the phrase, feedback is a gift. We joke about it all the time, but ask people. If you want to know what people think about you or what you do or how you do it, ask them. That's the easiest way to become self-aware. And be willing to accept what they're telling you. It's not always you may not always agree, and it may not always be accurate, right? But it has some level of accuracy because somebody believes it. So.
Yeah, well, and I think, you know, just taking that feedback and like whatever they say, you have to take it openly too. Okay, so next question. Kara says, at times when challenging the status quo in a professional and passionate manner, you can be viewed by others as being contrary or negative. Since perception is reality, whether the perception is accurate or not, what is your advice on overcoming or avoiding that perception while ensuring your passion and message is not being lost? That's a tough one.
So, you know, I think one of them is just, it's kind of human relations 101. You have to approach it with a solution-based mindset and always lead with a positive, right? So especially if you're about to have a difficult conversation or you need to push back a little bit, start with a positive. Look at it, like reframe it and look at it, what's good, but what can we do to enhance it? I think it's really how you approach it. And we have a rule here that we always assume good intent. And I think that that's really important, because we can't get the feedback and we can't have a safe place to have those difficult conversations, or say, you know what, I think instead of saying this isn't working, saying, hey, I think I have an idea on how to make it work better. We have to assume good intent.
You know, and I'll just add, because that's exactly, you know, exactly where I was thinking, and then taking it to the next step. So what Robin was speaking about earlier, you know, when we talked about managing up, know your audience. So of course, approach it with the, that you have a proposal in mind. You know all aspects. You're educated. You're not coming in as a complaint, right? But then know your audience. Are you presenting to a leader, a direct leader? Are you presenting to a team? Do you need to gain buy-in? What's the team going to be looking for? What's going to speak to that audience? How do you, the different aspects of it? Is it one versus many? And how do you influence, in those ways? And what are you going to need to come prepared with as far as solution-based items to present that challenge against the status quo? Because you never want to hesitate. You never want to be afraid to do that. But to Cindy's point, be educated and just know who you're speaking to.
That is great advice. All right, next question. So Michael says everyone talks about work-life balance, but not everybody's good at it. Most, like Sandra, still manage kids at home. What have you done that works, and what have you done to help your teams make it a priority?
I'll start. I try to demonstrate that work-life balance, quite frankly. My team knows that on Wednesdays and Fridays at noon, I go to a Pilates class. And it's okay if they need to do that. If that's, gosh, I remember when my kids were little, I would have killed for that, because once the evening came, there was no free time. So I think it's important to demonstrate to your teams that same kind of balance. I'm not always good at this, but I think, don't contact your team on the weekend if you don't want them to work on the weekend. It sends a really mixed message, and they don't know what they're expected to do. I think that's really important. And I will frequently say, you need to take a break. I know you got on a call this morning at 4:00 to talk to our team in India. So it's noon. Your day's done. You need to stop. You just have to kind of check in on them every now and then, because people they're so dedicated to their work. They won't take the break.
Robin, especially with now, since a lot of people are in a hybrid type of work environment or working from home, or this mix, it seems almost harder to separate the two. So that's really good advice, and I do think that by demonstrating, leaders will accomplish a lot more with the work-life balance, and that's the first one. Because if you tell your team, take a break, it's time to stop, go on a vacation, but then as your team, if I see you that you're always available, or you're always online, or then it is a mixed message, and it's like, well, yes, it's important, maybe. So demonstration. Awesome. That's awesome.
Well, and can I add to that, because it's funny, because I have a director that I work with, and I think she's actually on this call. We learned the email delay, which so two things: getting feedback from folks, because you're absolutely right, Robin. I do sometimes work on the weekend, and I didn't think anything of it. I don't expect you to reply, and then I was finding out people are like, well, that's making me stressed. So we discovered the delay on email, where you can write all your emails so you get that off your brain. You can pick the delay, and they can just receive it on Monday. That could be a
great tool. It's a great tool.
It is a great tool. Nathan, were you going to add to the work-life balance?
I actually loved Cindy's comment so much, I got distracted. But I think it also goes back to that entrusting our team, right? Because not only do we need to encourage our teams to take the time, but to go into leading by example, like we're speaking to. We tend to overmanage, overwork, you try to get everything done. And again, it just goes back to what we were talking about before with trusting your teams. They've got it. You hired them for a reason. They're there for a reason. So trust that they can handle it. It not only lets you step back for a moment, but it instills that trust. Can't remember who said that, but it gives, the employees a sense of accomplishment, empowerment, and it's beneficial all around. So not only encouraging them to take time, but also doing it yourself by trusting your team.
Trust goes a long way.
Yes, it does go a long way. So I'm not seeing any questions in the chat right now, but I do have a question of my own. So as you are trying to figure out the next steps in your career path, because sometimes, you know, the path is there, but sometimes it's not there. And being on a team that there's not always a lot of change, how do you go and find what the next step could be? Do you have advice on that?
You know, one of the things we haven't talked about is mentors. And if you don't have a mentor, I think that's your first step. I actually had the opportunity of being a mentor for someone who worked in finance on our field side. And actually, frankly, I had no idea what they all do. But we were able to kind of talk and network, and I was able to connect her with somebody to help her because her department didn't have anything. So she was going to have to switch departments, but she wanted to stay in the company. So I think the mentor programs that we have in our companies are so important because it expands your network and it gives you not only the opportunity to work through things, but to really look long-term, because that's really, a coach is short-term, right? And a mentor is long-term, so that you can find that next step.
We're getting ready to implement, this was new to me, or at least the way we're marketing it was new to me, but we're getting ready to implement gig opportunities within our organization. So it gives you the chance to say, you know, I want a new challenge. Gosh, I always thought it might be fun to be an accountant. If that's what you want to do. I lasted 8 years. I will throw that out there. But I think, you know, it gives you a chance to go try something new and see. They're like, they vary in length of assignment, 30 days, 90 days. You go and you sort of dip your toe in the water of something maybe you didn't do or know before, and you get a really good chance to see if there's potential there for you. The other thing, and I think sometimes we forget about, is not all of your experience needs to come from your job. So I mentioned that I had a project management background, and I used to encourage people who would say they were interested in project management by saying, you know, can you do something with your kids' school activities where you can organize the, you know, the fair or whatever's going on, or something at your church or in your community? Because sometimes those are great ways to find things that interest you or skills that you might want to build on. So it's not everything resides within your work world.
Yeah, you know, the one thing, the other last piece I would just add is just, you know, as you progress, I guess we talked about skills and kind of what I've grown over the years. One thing I didn't mention was just the ability to think outside the box. Our roles, our jobs, our careers, they're not perfect. If someone has one, let me know, and I would love to see how it works. But everything has a gap. Everything has an opportunity. And so, you know, when we're hiring, we even hear often, well, I'm not doing that role because I'm not hired for that role. Okay, so, you know, there's empowerment. You have the ability to look outside the box. What opportunity can you address? What can you make a tiny bit of movement on? What can you have a little bit of an influence to just make it a tad better and run with it? You know, one opportunity I see sometimes in leadership is they have that siloed mentality of this is what I do, this is how I have to do it until I'm given a task, and then I can run with it. Think broader. You know, as you go up, you have to think broader. You have to be that person that identifies that. And so if you feel stagnant or steady in a role, make it your own. Take ownership of it, run with it, and be that, you know, be that voice, be that bigger influence on leading the company, your department, yourself to success.
That is great feedback. And there is a lot happening in the chat. Cindy talked about the mentor, and WICT does offer a mentoring program, and I see that Nancy did put that link in. I did that a few years ago, and it was a great opportunity and really helped me learn more. And so if anybody is looking for a mentor, applications are due by this Friday. So the link is there. Take a look at that. I'm not seeing any other questions. So I want to just thank our panelists today and Sandra for this amazing panel. And there's so much engagement in this chat and so many great nuggets. And I'm glad I didn't run out of pages in my notebook because I was on my last page, but I didn't realize when I grabbed it. So thank you all for joining us today. We really enjoyed having you with us. And again, if you are a WICT member and have not renewed your membership, please do that by tomorrow so you don't lose out on your great benefits. And don't forget, our next WICT Network event is our speed networking. That's going to be on Thursday, May 12th. It is up on our website, and I will put a link in the chat to our website. And also be sure to follow us on our social media channels, and we will have tons of great information there as well. So thank you all, and I hope you have a great afternoon and get 15 minutes back in your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Cindy, Rob, and Nathan. It's been great working with you.
Thank you for the invite.